Good morning and welcome to another edition of the Daily Fix. I am your usual host and presenter, Advocate Tulo Hoyani. This morning I want to address the issue of why the prosecution, together with lead investigator Brigadier Gininda, are fabricating evidence before the Pretoria High Court to falsely implicate the accused persons in the killing of Senzo MEYIWA on the 26th of October 2014. Now, let me begin this analysis by saying this. You will recall that there was at a certain stage when Baloyi was being cross-examined. When Gininda was being cross-examined, I think it was by the late Advocate Tulani Mgomezulu, about why Kelly Khumalo had not been arrested, in spite of the fact that Gininda had indicated that there was a warrant of arrest prepared for Kelly Khumalo, and that it was not executed. To explain away why that warrant of arrest was never executed, Gininda just brushed off his hands and put all the blame on the prosecution. And it is this that I want to look into, among other things, this morning. Gininda explained to the Pretoria High Court under cross-examination that this was or is a prosecution-driven investigation. Now, what is a prosecution-driven investigation? A prosecution-driven investigation is an investigation that will, of course, begin with the police. The police will do their own investigations into a matter, and when those investigations are going on, from time to time, the police will then consult with the prosecution for guidance, for legal guidance. This is a process that will happen throughout the investigation until the investigation is completed and the prosecutors are satisfied that there is enough evidence on the basis of which they can go to court. So the final decision in a prosecution-driven investigation lies with the prosecutor. Now, the prosecutor in the Senzo MEYIWA case, or the lead prosecutor in the Senzo MEYIWA case, is Advocate George Baloyi. So let us see how this prosecution-driven investigation then unfolds. Brigadier Gininda procures, during his investigation, you'll recall that he visited Absalom Zungu at least on 2 occasions, virtually abducted him from his house and wanted him to sign a false, or to depose to a false affidavit, and even just ended up dumping him in the field when he did not cooperate. That is damning evidence. So that is how Gininda went about things. He tried to approach Absalom Zungu to get him to depose to this forgery, which is before the Pretoria High Court. After obtaining that forgery, remember, this is a prosecution-driven investigation. After then securing from himself You see, that forgery, the statement, that affidavit is a forgery. So it does not come from Absalom Zungu. So after he had concocted the forgery, let me put it that way, after he has concocted this forgery in the form of this affidavit, he then presents the same forgery to Baloyi and probably informs him that, look, I have got this forgery which I have come up with because we have no evidence to convict, and I want to get Muzi Sibiya and Bongani Ntanzi in that dock. I want to charge them with the murder of Senzo MEYIWA. So I have failed to get Zungu Senior, Absalom Zungu Senior, to depose to an affidavit that will implicate these two people. But oh well, nevertheless, I've come up with this grand plan, and I have concocted, I have thumbsucked an affidavit, and we will put that affidavit before the Pretoria High Court and lie to the Pretoria High Court that it has been deposed to by Absalom Zungu. And among other things, we will also say that Absalom Zungu is unable to come before court because there are threats on his life should he do so. That is what Gininda must have told Baloyi. Remember, these people work hand in glove, and this is a prosecution-driven investigation. Baloyi then says to him, oh, well, let me see what we have here. Looks into this forgery and goes through this forgery and makes a decision that, yes, this is just the sort of thing that I'm looking for. He renders legal advice in that respect and says, no, this one will go through. What a splendid job you have done. So Baloyi then goes to court and presents this forgery that he knows to be a forgery, or ought to know that it is a forgery, and presents it as Exhibit UU before the Pretoria High Court. UU is then read into the record, and it has only one intention, or the intention is only one in that respect: to falsely implicate both Bongani Ntanzi and Muzi Sibiya in the murder of Senzo MEYIWA. This is just how dangerous it is. Now you ask yourself, why is the prosecution and the investigators, why are they involved in these nefarious plots? That is a question that we must ask ourselves. Why would an investigator and a prosecutor sit down together and concoct false evidence and present such false evidence before a court of law to get a conviction? The reason in the Senzo MEYIWA trial is simple. Remember, there's docket 375. There are two dockets here, remember? The one docket 375 says there were no intruders into that house. And the second docket, whose repercussions we see unfolding in the Pretoria High Court, is docket 636, which says there were intruders into that house. Now, if there were real intruders into that house, why does the prosecution have to forge evidence to get those intruders convicted? Why do they have to resort to the use of forged affidavits? Because that is what Absalom Zungu's affidavit is, to prove their case. The reason is simple. The people standing in the Pretoria High Court have got nothing to do with the killing of Senzo MEYIWA. So the only way they can get to be implicated is through the use of false evidence, false affidavits. That is the only way left for the investigation. That is the only way the investigators and the prosecution can secure conviction. Because the real killers of Senzo MEYIWA, or the real killer of Senzo MEYIWA, is still out there. That is why a second docket was opened by Warrant Officer Makubu to charge Kininda and Shadrach Sibiya with defeating the ends of justice because of their pursuit of docket 636, which is a fiction. That is why this fiction is based on fictitious so-called affidavits which have been exposed for what they are by none other than the person to whom the fiction was attributed. Can you imagine the consequences if this forgery had not been exposed? And the court would have acted on the basis of this forgery to convict and sentence Muzi Sibiya and Bonganinda. This is what I want to disclose to you or bring to your attention this morning as the case rolls on in the Pretoria High Court. That Baloyi, that is my message this morning, that Baloyi and Kininda are equally complicit in the crime of defeating the ends of justice, and to a lesser extent in the crime of the kidnapping of Absalom Zungu. And they are also equally implicated in the crime of defeating the ends of justice by presenting a forged affidavit purportedly made by Absalom Zungu to falsely implicate, knowingly so, to falsely implicate the accused persons 1 and 2, and by extension all the others. Because remember, Baloyi is here pursuing this matter along the lines of the doctrine of Tom and Purpose, the act of one being the act of the other. So this is my engagement with you this morning. And as the weekend goes on, I'll keep on bringing you more analysis of the week's developments. Having said that, let me thank you for watching this video. Let me thank you for all the views, subscriptions, likes, and shares that I'm seeing. We are only a few steps away, I think, from that 12,000 subscriber mark. Please get on board, and the Daily Fix will endeavor every single day to bring you news and the news analysis you'll never get on any other news source in South Africa. Thank you very much and start enjoying your weekend.